Economic Alliance presents the Gulf Coast Growth Show with your host, Jason Lee and Clint Aiken. Our mission is to highlight stakeholders and activities that drive the Houston Port Region economy.
All right, hey, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm Jason Lee, your host.
And I'm Clint Aiken.
And we are here with Gregory, the Regional Manager
of Economic Development
for CenterPoint Energy and Queen of all things Texas.
Texans. Yes.
Oh, she's the Queen of all things Texans.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
Well, as a Cowboys fan, I'm still... we're already off on the wrong foot.
Right.
Man, this started off bad.
I just threw it in there for fun.
That's information I should have known beforehand.
Yeah, so today's, it's going to be weird if she walks off the set. So today's show is really about economic development. We are the Economic Alliance. We serve inside the Economic Alliance, and people hear the term economic, but I think everybody has a different association with that. So I'm excited to learn more about what economic development really means here in our region, and Karen plays a huge role in a huge organization for doing just that. So I'm excited about today's topic, and with that being said, love to turn it over to you to kind of give us a little bit about your background and makes you kind of qualified to be in front of us today speaking on these events, and then also, you know, at the end we'll see what qualifies you to be the Queen of the Texans.
That might be a different show.
Yeah, oh really? Okay. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, I have been with CenterPoint Energy, formerly Reliant Energy briefly, formerly Houston Lighting and Power, which was the wholly integrated utility and serving the Houston area for, as I said earlier, longer than you guys have been alive. Started when I was 2. I think I've been there 28 years.
Okay.
No, wait. I'm shorting myself. 38 years. 38
It's a
years.
prodigy.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is actually not uncommon for utility people.
Right.
Once you get into a utility, it's you have some people that invest their careers there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually have a client of mine that's at CenterPoint, and they've been there for 40 years now. So.
It is a great company. Anyway, so spent quite a bit of time in energy efficiency. Did that for about 20 years, and we were under the same director, economic development was, and I always had kind of looked from the side and thought, man, those guys have a cool job. I mean, I really enjoyed my energy efficiency job, but I thought, if there's ever an opening, I'd like to be in that group. And there was an opening, and I interviewed and managed to get the position. And I always tell people, you know, I thought I knew what economic development was until I got in it. And I didn't have a clue. And I think that's probably, I think a lot of people think they know what it is, but it's a whole process that I think people don't really have a good understanding of it.
Like marriage.
You know, that's probably true.
Yeah, it literally sounds like marriage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I thought I knew, but
Yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us a little bit about.
Another topic for a different show, Jason.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah, right.
This is going to be a whole TV
Welcome to the View. Oh boy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about economic development. So tell us a little bit about what it is and some of the organizations that you assist.
So I brought my definition of economic development.
Oh, fantastic.
Actually, because it's a lot here. That is the official, I think, definition from the International Economic Development Council. And they define it as programs, policies, and initiatives that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community by creating and retaining jobs that promote growth for a stable tax base.
Nice.
So that's a lot of words.
That's a good definition, though.
It's a good definition.
Strong.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
And basically, and traditionally that was measured by jobs and capital investment. So it was the deliberate effort to go out and attract jobs or seek growth within existing companies within your community to create, you know, a tax base for the community, and then obviously employment for your citizens. And it has evolved over the years. I would say that back, I think, and some of the old timers that have been in the industry still see it very much as what they would call industrial development. So they were looking for the type of jobs that brought a lot of capital investment. Petrochem, big manufacturing, you know, things like that. But it has evolved over the years. So, you've got economic development and you've got community development. And they're two different things, but I think they're interdependent. And so economic development means different things for different communities. I've had the opportunity to serve on the Texas Economic Development Council's CETA Award Selection Committee, which is a Community Economic Development Award Committee. And every year they'll reach out and they'll ask communities to submit, their nomination for what happened in their community that they think is award worthy. And you see communities, they've got it divided into categories. So you've got communities, I think it's from 500 to 1,500 population, and they've got 5 different categories, and it goes up to the large cities. So participating in that selection committee, I have seen, you may have something like San Antonio, and they worked hard to bring in a large manufacturing or corporate headquarters that's going to employ 10,000 people in high-paying jobs. But then you look at some small community like Dimeball, Texas or something, population 800. And, they've brought in like a little gas station, which you would think, but to a small town, that's huge.
That's
right.
News.
Right,
That's not
it
just a little
is.
thing.
And kind of early on, I've served on that committee for several years. Early on, and I'd kind of watch some of the old timers, and they would just dismiss. There was one community they were bringing in. They got a Whataburger and a Walmart or something, and the old timers were like, well, that's not economic development. I want to see a concrete factory or whatever. But to each community, it's what's important to them.
Wow. That's a great way of putting that.
It really is.
And you say old timers, so seeing as how you started at 2, you're talking about like what, 15,
Well,
16
I'm
years
talking
old?
about people that have been in economic development for 40 years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm still sort of a youngster in the economic development world. I've only been doing it 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So, tell us a little bit about some of the organizations that you assist, try to attract.
Okay, so within the Houston area footprint, we've got about 50 organizations that have some type of economic development effort, be it communities and cities, membership based like the Economic Alliance. You've got some management districts, some county oriented economic development organizations, and we're divided up. There's just a handful of us now. There's 4 of us that actually call on the organizations. And we're divided up into territory, and we work with them. We serve on their boards. We assist with prospects and projects as needed. We help run committees as needed. So my previous manager liked to say what he wanted the CenterPoint team to be was the trusted advisors to the economic development organizations that we called on.
Got it.
So, assisting them with the primary function of job attraction or business retention or some of that, but to also help the organizations be strong and viable. And because we've got good insight to kind of all the economic development organizations, not only in our area, but we interact with different state organizations and EDOs in different parts of the state, and also through the IEDC, International Economic Development Council, we get to interact with some of them, in other parts of the country.
Right.
So we kind of have a good perspective of how different organizations run, and then we can bring some of those best practices back to the organizations that we work with.
Well, I think one of the things that I've gotten to witness just over here in this region is you shared this a second ago, and you said economic development economic development is not so much just the industrial component, but then all the other subsequent things that drive jobs and create opportunities and existing things. One thing I never really paid attention to growing up, because I grew up in the area, and so it was always Stinkadina or the plants or wherever, right? So you always envision driving down into this area, but not living here, right? Everybody just assumed it was this place where like people went to work in hard hats and work boots, but then nobody was like living around here. There was in growing up.
Or so you thought, right?
Yeah, growing up, it was kind of that way. Like there really wasn't a lot, but now you're seeing up Beltway 8, Pasadena. I mean, it's becoming this huge retail network, and then we had Heather Betancourt on from Baytown, and they're redeveloping all of Old Baytown, and I'm hearing this is starting to happen down towards Texas City, up through Maine. Yeah. So really people are looking to try to develop, shopping, take what you might see in the metro part of Houston and bring it out into our little, our little mini economy over here, so that people not only live here but work here, but we also can attract more people to create more opportunity out here.
So that's kind of how that all works. You have you try to attract or grow your businesses that bring good paying employment, and that brings rooftops, which is a driver for retail, because they're not going to go to somewhere where they can't justify their existence. So when I said economic development is evolving, so you had industrial development, and it was kind of this, that was what the focus was. But communities are starting to realize, okay, if I'm going to bring these jobs here and attract people to this area to come establish themselves, they're looking for that quality of life too. Well, if I come here and bring my business here and hire people or transfer employees here, where are they going to shop? What are the schools like? Is there available housing?
Right.
So is there available workforce? So are the schools effective, or can economic development organizations help connect me to these entities that can help me? Kind of, it's this holistic approach now.
Love it.
And so where community development is very
sustainability in that
sustainability,
also.
yeah,
It's huge.
It is, and so it really is. It's this multifaceted effort to create viable communities. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Clint?
So I guess now would be a good time to take a commercial break, right? So we'll go to commercial break real quick, thank our sponsors, and we'll come right back and we'll hit some more topics.
McCarthy Building Companies. From the Museum of Fine Arts to terminals on the Ship Channel, we understand the challenges and complexities you face when building here in the Gulf Coast. As the oldest privately held national construction company in the country, we have a clear focus on clients, community, and collaboration.
All right, welcome back, and thanks again to our sponsors and for all that you guys do. So we're going to dive back into our interview, and Karen, you're doing a great job. Excited to have you here on the show. So
as far as CenterPoint, we talked about, you kind of hit different ways that y'all do get involved, but can you give us a little bit more as to, you don't really have competition, so
why?
Yeah, get into that a little bit deeper.
So historically, utilities and railroads have been very engaged in economic development as it first kind of came into being, and a lot of that is because you've got this investment. The railroads are running track, the utilities are stringing wire throughout this area, and so basically you're looking to optimize your investment and fill in with customers. So that's how, we've got a defined footprint. We cannot, from the electric standpoint, we can't grow beyond our footprint. We've got our boundaries. We bump up against Entergy. So what we need to do is in order to grow our company is bring more customers into our electric footprint. So that's our kind of benefit of participating in economic development, just from the business side. And then, of course, it's the kind of community support, because economic development is very much, you're creating viable communities. And so that's important to us as a business who's going to be located here, is we want to make sure this area remains as viable as possible.
Wow.
So it's a business thing, but it's a social thing as well.
Yeah, I think it's really neat to see the overlap in those two things, because they can't coexist. They can't exist on their own.
Yeah,
they really
exactly.
they really have to. And I think one of the things that has been really an observation on my end, from just as you go up and down 225, we have Shell, they're a sponsor of ours, and McCarthy and all these other organizations, but especially the refineries, is their active involvement here in this region. It's not put it up and make money. It's put it up, make money, and help people succeed. Involve yourself in the community.
Be a community member.
Be a community member. And so I think it's really neat to see that from and it's not just you don't just relate it to branding. What I've seen from people like yourself and others that are actively involved is really a high level of ownership. People that are inspired to do their job. Now, I always, right, when I get my bill,
Yes.
right, I'm like, so right,
She
when
knew
I
it
was,
was coming.
yeah, well, she knew it was coming, right, because I was like, oh, God, we got to talk to the lady from CenterPoint. I was like, well, can I talk to her about my bill? You know, I was like, can you do something? Like, is there like a hookup for your friends? Or, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
But
we've got energy efficiency programs.
well, okay, there. So, but I think before when we were talking before the show, and you were sharing a little bit of your story, and I think something that a lot of people miss is some of the give back, right? Some of the importance of y'all's ideas around conservation, which is, to me, sounds odd, right? I'm like,
Right.
here's a company that makes money for energy, but then they're trying to put things in
Right.
place to conserve energy. So.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I spent several years, many years actually, in our energy efficiency group, working with originally residential on high efficiency air conditioning, but then transferred over to the commercial group where I worked with school districts and businesses and a little bit of industry actually. And we had incentives for the investment of high efficiency equipment. And basically, you're looking to, it's demand side management. So, kind of from an all-encompassing. You've got the generation. You want to try to optimize your generation. There's obviously some environmental impacts on coal plants and even gas-fired plants. So, how do you try to really optimize that generation and make sure that you can put as many customers on that system, but they're operating as efficiently as possible? It's kind of a win-win. So the customer is benefiting from having the highest efficiency equipment, their home is optimized and then within the system. So it's like I said, I mean, it's a mandate that comes down from the Public Utility Commission to offer demand-side management programs as a percentage of projected growth. But it's a smart business thing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I just think it's wonderful, and I think it's something that kind of goes, by the wayside. We just kind of take it for granted and stuff. But I do appreciate you sharing that with us.
That's a good thing. We were talking before. So, people, if you've got reliable service, you probably don't think about us that much.
Right.
If you were having problems, it'd be like, oh, CenterPoint. But yeah, reliability is king in the electric utility business.
Right.
I mean, we want our customers to have power. Obviously, the meters spin. We want you to have reliable power.
Right.
We really do. That's important.
Well, you guys are doing a good job as far as I'm concerned.
I'm pretty proud of our. It's not perfect. You've got weather issues. I mean, that's always
especially in
gonna happen.
Houston.
I mean, post hurricanes, that's always a challenge. But I will tell you, I mean, I think during Hurricane Ike, where we lost a huge percentage of, customers were down.
Right.
And I know it's frustrating for people, but I was pretty proud of how quickly we mobilized, and we have mutual assistance crews come in and try to get as many people on as quickly as possible.
With that being said, we always talk a lot about first responders, but while we have a moment, I want to really thank our linemen, right?
Yes.
And so those guys are
Those
the
are the
heroes,
guys that get
man.
it done,
And I've got a couple of friends and dear friends of mine that are linemen, and it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
B, it's absolute necessity,
Those are the
and
guys.
whenever people don't hear about this, but let's be clear. If there's a storm in Florida, if there's a storm in Carolinas, and even I think it was
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Sent some people.
Puerto Rico. I had friends in Puerto Rico because of the work that you guys do. So let's give a big shout out to the linemen. If we have anybody, if not, pass this episode along. Let them know the Gulf Coast Growth Show appreciates them, just like we do our first responders and our police and our military units, because those guys are heroes, man. They really do keep it running. So
They get it done.
So, and prior to getting on the show too, I do want to kind of hit on this because we were talking about how people see CenterPoint on the bill, right? But what they don't understand is y'all don't actually do the power generation.
Correct.
Y'all do delivery.
Correct. So, So in 2001, the the state of Texas deregulated, basically. They decoupled investor-owned utilities did. They decoupled the generation part with what remained regulated, which is us, the poles and wires, the transmission distribution system. So, so with that, there was a code of conduct that was established, meaning we were not going to have direct customer interaction because we needed to establish the retail providers. Now you've got Discount Power and all these people that you can go on Power to Choose
Right.
every year, whenever your contract's up, and select a new energy provider. But we remained kind of behind as the regulated entity. So our customers are actually the retail providers. They go out, they get the customers, they get you guys, and then we work with them to deliver the power that they've contracted through power generators.
Right, and the power is actually coming from
Power plants.
Right.
So there are companies that own power plants. They may have a retail arm. There are retailers
wow.
that may just be, that's what they do, is they go out and negotiate power rates and then sign up customers. And then there is the legacy electric company that owns the transmission, distribution, all the infrastructure.
So it's its
we're the
own little
infrastructure
economics.
is.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It is.
I'm glad you cleared that up because my next question was going to be how many hamsters does it take to power Houston?
Yeah.
I was like, it's got to be at least 100.
Yeah.
You know?
Those are some hard-working hamsters.
Those are some hard-working hamsters on that wheel. If they could only work as hard as Bill O'Brien.
Don't.
Well,
those hamsters are smarter.
yeah. So, well, with that being said, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, what makes you tick. I mean, obviously, you said you loved working for the company. You had some really cool jobs, but I've been around you a few times, and each time you've just been energetic and enthused. It sounds like you really enjoy what you're doing. What is it that gets you up every day and makes you go out and want to go do what you do?
Well, with economic development, probably partly because I'm kind of nosy, and so it's you really kind of get some insight to some industries or businesses that are considering your area. So you're kind of in there.
Oh, cool.
Getting kind of firsthand. Now, I will tell you, when I first came into economic development, it was hard for me to adjust because I had come from kind of an engineering, energy efficiency, project management aspect. And economic development, you've got prospects looking in not just this area, but they're considering options throughout a region, throughout the world. You know, a lot of times you hear people like, well, they're coming here anyway. Not necessarily. So you work through the people, people like the Alliance and some of my other economic development organizations, and they're working with prospects who are considering the area. And my manager said it best, listen, we're in the rejection business. What you're trying to do as an economic developer is like you try to stay in the game as long as you can and make sure it's a good fit. Make your area the most attractive area. It's like, why do we want to do business here? So that has become, I've gotten past the rejection part, I get that, but just kind of watching the whole process and what this particular company, what they're looking for, what's important to them, and that may be totally different from this other company that's looking in the area, and what are their big drivers. And so it's kind of interesting to see what makes a company tick, and try to make that connection of why we want you to come in here and be our neighbor.
That's awesome.
It's kind of neat, yeah.
So for our audience, if you ever, this is our view moment, right?
Okay.
You want to get the inside scoop on what's happening in the business around here? You got
Working confidentiality.
Oh, never mind.
Very important.
I take all that
That's
back.
very important.
Reach out to Clint because he's also nosy and he is
Yeah.
not confidential. So
I am too. With most of my clients.
Yeah, that was kind of challenging because I'm kind of like but so it's very important for these projects for as long as possible to stay confidential.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you having or joining us today.
It's been fun.
And I think
nervous, but it turned out okay, I guess.
super easy. Yeah. So we always like to wrap up with a little gratitude. So I'd love to I'll make it easy. I'll let Clint go first. on what we're grateful for, and then maybe you can share, and I'll
Okay.
share, and then we'll wrap up the show.
I'm grateful for the staff here at the Economic Alliance. They do a great job. We recently attended the Gulf Coast Industry Forum, and they just made that whole thing seem seamless.
Unbelievable.
Because they're just the highest level professionals you can possibly find. So I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful that we get to work with them, and they help make this possible too. So good people.
Karen?
Same with me. I'm grateful to be, I kind of grew up in the area. I'm grateful to be part of this community. I'm proud to be part of this community. I know Houston really is a tale of two cities, I say. Kind of got everything that's going on the west side, and then we're kind of the, I don't want to say redheaded stepchildren, and not, I don't want to say.
Oh yeah, but everybody's like, oh, Katie.
It's an
I'm like, oh
expression.
no.
But it's like, there was a guy that was a member here for the longest time, and he's based on the west side. And he came over here, and he's like, man, I didn't realize how much was going on over here.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's just, this is this over here, it's just people getting it done. And I'm just real proud to be part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for a commitment to workforce development and to our youth. We have some phenomenal schools and organizations in the area who've made a commitment to helping kids get facilitated and help them craft dreams that perhaps they didn't have.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think if you're a young individual that's growing in this area and you're not really sure where you want to go with your career, you can find some tremendous opportunities inside of this organization and inside of this region and in industry. And it's one thing that I kind of champion is tell young adults all the time. I say, if you're not sure where you're going and you don't want to go to the military, one place to really look into is some of the work that's happening over on the in petrochem and in development. And so, with that being said, I really appreciate you on the show today.
Thank you.
I know Clint did as well. And we want to thank our audience for tuning in to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. We're excited. And as always, you can give us feedback at our website, at the Economic Alliance, Houston Port Region website, as well as LinkedIn page, our Facebook page. Follow us and subscribe to any of our channels. And if you want to give us feedback on guests, reach out and get more information from Karen. You're welcome to reach out to us directly. And we look forward to hearing from you. Talk to you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks.